We were just talking off the air, folks, and boy, this little 12-year-old guy, can I say little 12-year-old guy? That doesn't sound too demeaning, does it?
No.
You're 12. Did you know that? You knew that. Our guest, folks, in the studio yesterday in front of the executive committee here in Toronto with a passionate plea to stop human trafficking. That 12-year-old here from Toronto in studio with his mom right now, his mom, Sheila. Sheila, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
And Christopher Cardenas Avila.
Avila.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me here.
You're very welcome. Now, you're 12 years of age, and something that is very important, human trafficking. How did you become aware of it at the young age of 12?
Well, in 2010, my mom started volunteering for this organization called Free Them, and I started volunteering with her. So ever since then, I just got involved with it.
And we'll talk to some of the people from Free Them in a second. But Sheila, tell us a little bit about the work that you were doing.
So essentially, I plan events as my day job, and I started learning about this through the founder, Shane Vidiata. And I ended up just realizing how much it was happening in our city. And you realize that human trafficking happens abroad, but you never realize that it happens in our backyard. So I just started jumping on board, organizing events with them. We host our annual Freedom Walk in September. And that's when I got Christopher involved. I started educating him about forced labor, sexual exploitation, and letting him know that he needed to be safe and aware of what was happening in his city.
And Christopher, your son, who spoke in front of the executive committee at City Hall, he's 12 years of age. I mean, human trafficking can be a kind of pretty ugly thing. Were you concerned about kind of exposing him to some of the ingredients of human trafficking, especially the sexual exploitation?
Christopher is a very wise man beyond his years. I'm so proud of him and everything that he's learned throughout the years. It's something that I was at first skeptical and scared to show him and teach him about. But I think he's ready to handle it. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the media, video games, and I think kids need to be prepared of the realities of what's happening in our city. And they're the world changers. They're the ones that are going to make the changes that we need to make Toronto a slave-free city. And that's when Christopher wrote his deputation.
So, Christopher, what kind of human trafficking and, as your mom said, slave-free city, what kind of slavery is in our city right now?
Mostly sexual exploitation, but there's also forced labor.
And these people come from other countries and they're promised what? How does it usually happen?
Well, it depends. Sometimes there's people coming from, there was a case where somebody came from Hamilton just to Mississauga, but, it's literally, it depends. Sometimes they're coming from a different country, but usually they tell them they're going to be doing, a day job, a different day job, and then they trick them into, doing something else afterwards.
Now, the message coming from somebody who is 12 years of age, why do you think it's any different coming from you?
Well, from my perspective is because basically people don't know how kids feel about this subject because not too many kids know about this. They think it's happening overseas, but when it's actually happening here, it's different because my friends could be ones getting trafficked, right? So it's different.
And just to add to that, the average age of entry into sexual exploitation here in Canada is 13 years of age.
13 years of age.
Yeah, and that's domestic and international.
Christopher, with his message at 12, is basically of the age of people who are being exploited in this manner.
Definitely.
And when you think of that, Christopher, how does it make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel kind of bad because any day I could be trafficked, but now that I know that this stuff is happening, I could be more self-aware and I could send the message to other people, my friends, my family, all people around Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, to hear the message from a 12-year-old, Sheila, is certainly maybe different than hearing it from some of the people who you work with in the organization Free Them, and we're going to hear from the founder in a second.
Mm-hmm. And it is definitely from the mouth of babes. I mean, people don't really realize how prevalent it is here, and when it's coming from a 12 or 13-year-old, yesterday in the deputation, Christopher ended up getting a standing ovation. People were clapping, and his words were impactful. They were straight to the point, no sugarcoating, and he just said buying humans is not right. And that's really the message that he's trying to teach the city.
So, Christopher, can you give us an idea of what your deputation asking the city to do what they can to stop human trafficking, what it sounded like yesterday?
Well, I gave some recommendations to the city.
And what were they?
Well, yesterday I told them maybe like nowadays there's so much videos on YouTube. People go to that for sources of news, everything. So like I compared it to like Gangnam Style. It's a silly video, yet it has over 1 billion views on YouTube. So maybe if we made like a PSA on YouTube, people would pay more attention and then people would spread the message and it would get lots of views.
And what were some of your other recommendations?
I also said that people could come into schools and talk to children about this and everything. So people my age and older.
And your response, your mom just said you got a standing ovation, but who were you talking to?
The city council.
The city council. All of the city council or just the executive?
It was the executive.
Did the mayor come up to you? Did you remember anybody who came up to you who was happy with your deputation?
No, I left after my deputation, so I didn't get to see. But I heard other people from Free Them told me what they were saying, and they were talking about me.
Free Them is the name of the organization that you were there speaking on behalf of, and the founder of that organization joins us right now. Shay, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you. So
you started Free Them, and Sheila started volunteering with you. What do you think of Christopher?
You know what? I told a few people that Christopher was going to be giving a deputation and sharing his words. And somebody had said to me, wow, that's really cute. And I corrected them by saying, this isn't cute. This is a 12-year-old who has words and wisdom beyond his years. And Christopher's words literally is changing the course of history. And he made history yesterday before our executive committee. And, we were talking about it afterwards, and I said to Christopher, wait till you're just a little older. And you look back on these years that go by you, and even if you don't do anything else to fight human trafficking, you're going to see how your words were eternal, and you actually are going to change the generations in front of you and behind you. And he changed the course of history yesterday. And so I think it's beyond remarkable and very, very inspiring, very inspiring.
So at 12 years of age, Christopher, is this something that you can see yourself being passionate about for the rest of your life?
Well, if I'm helping with all this stuff, I guess I would still see myself volunteering with Free Them and helping out, so yeah. Free
Them, again, is an organization that wants to stop human trafficking and even the stuff that might be right under our nose in Toronto. How much of it is right under our nose? We'll ask the founder of Free Them in a second. I find this a little depressing because I'm trying to compare myself to what the hell I was doing when I was 12, and it was nothing nearly as important as what we're talking to Christopher about right now. Christopher Cardenas Avila is with us, along with his mom, Sheila, and also with us on the phone, the founder of Free Them, Shay Invidiata, is with us. Shay, can you tell us how prominent human trafficking and human slavery is here in Toronto?
Yeah, and Christopher was correct in saying earlier that the two most prevalent forms of human trafficking are forced labor and sexual exploitation. And when you look across Canada, over 60% of human trafficking cases that make it before Canadian courts end up coming out of southern Western Ontario. And majority of those are absorbed by Toronto and the GTA. So it's detrimental to Toronto.
And what kind of, outside of the sexual stuff, and we'll get to that in a second, but what kind of, are we talking about clothing, or what kind of things are these people doing?
In regards to sexual exploitation, most commonly are found in the massage parlors, can be hidden behind escort services, and even in strip clubs. Toronto doesn't have as great of an issue in strip clubs as Peel region does, but that is still.
So you're saying that most of the human trafficking and the sexual exploitation involving people who have been forced into this kind of thing involves something that is sexual. It's not like, somebody making clothes or purses in the basement somewhere, that it's mostly sexual.
That's correct.
And these are people who have been forced against their will to come to Canada, or promised something and then kind of double-crossed when they get here?
Yes, it would be both. I mean, if it is international, whether they've been promised to come over here as a nanny, they're thinking they're coming over here to be a model, which is very common as well, more so in the United States than we do see here in Canada, or if it is for whatever purpose of the job is, but that it turns into something else. But domestic trafficking is a huge, huge component. So, girls and young boys that are coming from Vancouver, coming from Halifax, coming from Ottawa, and even within the city of Toronto itself, that are being forced into sexual exploitation.
Again, we're with the founder of Free Them, folks. That is the voice of Shay Invidiata, and also Christopher Cardenas Avila is with us in studio, and his mom, Shay. So, Sheila, I'm sorry. Folks, I get confused by a whole bunch of different names. And so yesterday you asked several things, including the City of Toronto, to no longer advertise in certain magazines, I guess, including Now Magazine, and the Toronto Sun would also fall under that purview, because you want the city to stop advertising and boycott magazines, publications with escort ads. But doesn't that get into a kind of a gray area? Because I would think, not that I've checked, but even the Toronto Star has ads for massage parlors, Shay.
Right. And this is going to be an ongoing conversation that will be had before council. So this is not going to be a quick decision overnight. The important part is that we are, one, having the conversation, and two, taking the necessary precautions in order to alleviate fueling human trafficking through these ads. And so it is very common that some of the ads that you can pick up one of the newspapers, and it's not just Now Magazine, it's not just Toronto Sun, and see these advertisements that are leading to cases of human trafficking, and that there are people enslaved behind these advertisements.
Do any of these magazines and or newspapers have any kind of standard on the advertisement that they'll accept?
They're supposed to, but I mean, it's a disclaimer. So it's a matter of the one, person submitting the ad to check off the box saying that they are complying, that everybody is over the age of 18, they're doing nothing illegal. And as long as Now Magazine or Toronto Sun receives that, it's technically out of their hands. And what we're saying is that's not enough. That's not sufficient. You can't just put a little disclaimer to say that, you've covered yourself. We need to push this one step further, because this isn't just doing something illegal. You're literally stripping the dignity and freedom from a human being.
Yeah, I mean, some people have suggested that getting rid of advertisements from at least Now Magazine, that you're trying to submarine a political view that might be of like mind of some of the people who are on the left at City Council. But I don't know. I mean, the Toronto Sun is kind of on the right, and Now Magazine is on the left. I don't know that can be seen as being the purpose behind it.
Yeah, like I said, it'll be an interesting conversation that I'm sure we're going to go back and forth on many times. And again, it's to be very clear with what the message that the government is giving the City of Toronto and its citizens. And wherever you are seeing, even if it's some cases, some papers might have more minor cases of actual trafficking that, is coming forward through these publications. But the bottom line is, if it's happening, we need to take a stand clear position on it.
Yeah,
and Toronto.
Go ahead. I think something else that might be a little hypocritical is that, some of these places might be indeed licensed by the City of Toronto, and to not to boycott places where they're allowed to advertise. Maybe the city's got to do something about who gets licenses.
Well, you know what? It is a perfect point that you raised. And we have been in discussions with MLS for that very purpose. So they are definitely being brought into this discussion. And, I'd love to come back and discuss this more with you when we actually have a stronger response from MLS on who and how they're receiving licensing, because that is part of the entire conversation. Absolutely.
So, Christopher, what are you planning next? I mean, are you excited about staying involved with this, or what do your friends say about this?
Well, my friends are actually very supportive, and I explain to them every day, like, what I'm doing with Free Them. So sometimes I'll bring them to volunteer with me.
Yeah. And you're prepared to do whatever you can?
Well, yeah. It's pretty much just helping our community. So I'm pretty much trying to make a better future for everyone.
Well, you must be very proud, Sheila.
I am so proud.
Yeah. All right.
So proud.
Well, thank you very much, Christopher, for coming in. And Sheila, thanks for coming in as well. The organization is called Free Them, and Shay is the founder. Shay, thanks for your time as well.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll link some information to the website on the Jim Richards page of News Talk 1010.